Hello and welcome. This is Corey Angelot. Welcome to the End of Slavery Summit. I'm here with Fred Gringras of the Libercast, and we're going to be talking about shadow work. I'm also here with my host, Aaron Butler. We're going to go deep into what it means to have shadow work. First things first. Well, what is shadow work? Could you introduce some about yourself as well, Fred?
Okay, it began at my spiritual crisis. Actually, I found out about David Icke and Mark Passio and Michael Tessarian, and Michael Tessarian has been a pivot in my life, um, from the aspect of psychic vampirism and behaviorism and psychology and things like that. It opens a door inside. When you take in certain knowledge about psychology, you start with yourself, and this is how the shadow work for me began. More of an intellectual aspect first, and then spiritual shadow working as came after that. I have a past of I've been abused in certain way, like a lot of people. By the way, there's a lot of people who don't know what abuse is, and they don't know that they've been abused. But in the way, I decided to stop to lying to myself first. I decided to confront the shadows and my demons, like people called it. So um, the work is ongoing. It's still ongoing, and I'm still struggling uh, through the purification. You call it transmutation, or um, psychological change, and it is a very a step by step progress. Progress. Sorry for my French. Um, After 10 years of deep introspection, there's a lot of positive aspect that come from it, and this is what I wanted to bring up in my podcast. More of a healing and experiencing the shadow work, mostly because there is no great work without shadow work. It doesn't exist.
It's really important that people look at shadow work, and you have personal experience, you said yourself, with the shadow work.
Yes.
So how does that relate to slavery? Because I know you mentioned to me how this is a really core aspect to understand.
Yes. um, Everything is about this. All the
Mm,
mind control, the programming from the cultural point, from the theological point. There's no separation. When you're into natural law, you understand really uh, quickly that everything is connected together. um, what I mean by that is that shadow work mostly is a destructive path. It
okay.
is taking truth about yourself and about the world, and then making peace with yourself. It's not about destroying peace, but it's a destructive process. What I mean that truth is a destructive process for people who live in lies. So this
Mm,
is what I want to bring. Slavery, it's all in the mind of the people. Yes, you have the shackle version of it that happened and still happening today. Let's not bring down the information, because the slavery is still very active when we're talking about shackling and coercion and things like that. So uh, basically, shadow working is a way to alleviate these shackles, because when you're in this path, you're discovering truth about yourself, and you will probably not love this.
mm.
There's a lot of repression, there's a lot of schism inside yourself, because this whole society is a schism.
Yeah.
So even more in the parental aspect. It's intergenerational mind control,
So,
basically.
and when you said you kind of confronted abuse, kind of, another word for this is trauma, right? You're
Yes,
confronting trauma.
yes.
Um, and sort of, there's this self trauma as well. We talk about self loathing, right? This is
Yes.
another scenario. Um, could you fill us in on some about that and maybe how that relates to shadow work?
So self-loathing, as such, is a consequences of bad minding conditioning. It's like you have the if you have garbage, like Mark Passo says, if you have garbage that are told to you, then you're gonna process garbage, and what comes up at the end.
Mm,
So even what I want to say about this is, um, there's no shadow work without pain. Usually the people who are doing the shadow work are people who have suffered in their life enough to want to put a stop to it, basically.
I
So
see.
you 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 have to break these conditionings that you have inside, and self-loathing is the first one we have to attack, that we have to fight and confront, because this one is a wall in your
Hmm.
progress. It's gonna stop you right there. And let me tell you, people, okay, and people will listen to this. There's this is not funny. This is not funny stuff. Okay, we are not there to ascend to another dimension. Okay, you're there because you want to be in full awareness of this dimension, the 3D world and the spiritual world.
Hmm. And you can't just run away from your problems.
Yeah,
You gotta.
yeah.
And
Well, it's you always have the choice, but
Mm,
if you're in shadow work, you're gonna there's some things that you put on a drawer that there's this will coming back, and usually it's going full front. You feel the slap, you know.
mhm,
Well, and you've mentioned a lot about parenting, and
Yes,
it seems like parenting, in my experience, really it forces you, or it brings up this shadow in yourself that
yes,
you ignore, and you find a lot of parents that they'll treat their children as if they're just some separate entity from themselves. When from my experience, it seems like when your child is behaving a certain way, and or out of alignment with how you perceive, you think that they should be acting, or how you act, but the truth is that they're just mirroring
yes.
the behavior, and the attitudes that you have given them and you have programmed them with. uh you know h- how do you how much have you learned in this experience about you know seeing that reflection of yourself in them, and not fighting it as much, and you know
So what I want to bring about that, because parenting there is a big sorry about that.
so good.
So basically,
It's parenting.
yes, um, basically, children are a mirror to you. So when you have, I've been raised a certain way. I'm not agreeing with this, and I try as much as we can as parents, because we're not perfect. We're gonna make mistakes, but if you have the if you have the self reflection and the self awareness, then you're not gonna be able to correct it, because it's all about actions. You can read about parenting in books and listen to videos, but when there are your children, when it's your family, it's pretty different. You know, I my parents were a little cold. Um, they I've been victim from humiliation from my parents and things like that, and this stuff there will have uh, real hard consequence on the behaviors of children. And I realized it, because this is, and we're coming full circle with self-loathing there, because children, when their parents treat them like crap, they will blame themselves for it.
Hmm.
And most parents are not mature enough, are not experienced enough to have children. And what is happening when children are making children? Because this is I'm not joking, and I'm getting back a lot to this, but it's a good example. Mostly the IQ of people is to 6 to 7 years old. Okay, so you have adult roaming around with 6 to 7 years old IQ. I'm not saying that children are not intelligent at 6, 7 years old, but when you have 50, 60 years old, 40, you know,
Hmm.
it's not a justification for being a asset.
Yeah. So would you say there's techniques to heal that shadow work? I mean, as a kid, it could be sometimes, I guess, difficult to find that support, right? Because you
Yes.
have less of a will or a reason to really use, but you still have the ability. It's just I think the child is a bit more dependent on the environment, what parents, what people they're around. Whereas as an adult might be able to confront their fears more, but it's more years that they have to confront, and that could be also more difficult. So I don't know which one is easier to confront,
Yes.
but I don't know what you would have to say about that. Are there techniques that they can use at these different ages?
So actually, there's a lot of different way to deal with it. I cannot remember the name of the gentleman who went talking to Mark Passo one day, and he's been into these deep pain and suffering in this younger age, and he was talking about hypnosis. Hypnosis can be a good way to open those drawers, but you have to be ready. You have to care about it. You have to have the desire to do it, because the shadow work will not like treating you like a children. They will not. It will not like uh, pet you, and like it's gonna be a bitch slap. Okay, so hypnosis for me, as I tried it once, and it's very good. It's very good because when you have experience in meditation and things like that, you can still have the control of it, and you cannot take open willing decisions into your process. It's not like a deeper hypnosis when you see these people being they do whatever they want with them. It's not about that. It's more a lighter uh, a consensual hypnosis. So
Mm.
this is one part there, and then this one there, I don't know if people would be interested in that, but it's fantastic and a cheap way to it's a shortcut. Mostly, this is how I call them, but entheogen compounds, entheogenic compounds like um, uh, mushrooms, okay, micro dosing and things like that. They are a good way to like a trampoline, it's like a jump start when because principally psilocybin will bring you back inside, and that's what we want there. We want deep introspection and healing. So if you have, and I want to tell people, uh, mushrooms, when you take them, you have to be in the mood for it. It's a process. It's a respect for a plant. This mushroom, it deserves respect, because if you take it and you're messing with it, you're not gonna like this. Okay, because
Mm.
this is the kind of things that it opens doors into your mind. You have the choice to take it or not. you know and I could talk a little bit about my experience with entheogenic compounds,
Yeah.
but essentially there's the mushroom and psychotropic drugs that can be took but you know you have to respect the way. It's not a entertaining kind of drug. You take it because there's a path. There's a you're going this way, you know. So well, usually social environments helps a lot. If you have good friends that you can talk to, if like me, I'm blessed with having a beautiful wife that is supporting me in that. um, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like friends and love and compassion to help you through your hardship. And and you, my wife just remembered me a couple of days ago. I was having this day. There's those downs when you're going shadow work. There's downs and ups, and I wasn't this down. And my wife told me, "You can tell me about it. You know,
Mhm.
so you have someone to like care about you helps a lot. Okay,
Yeah.
like everybody, you need this social aspect in your life. It
Mm.
helps a lot. You know, it's not like I'm all alone, you know, in a little apartment and I have to like take care of myself by my home, but it's not the case for me. So I have so much thing that I'm grateful for, you know,
Mhm.
my children and my wife and my the house that I rent that I've been lucky to have all these beautiful things
Yeah.
in my life, and I'm telling you people, I'm blessed, you know. But it's not
Mhm.
you work for this, you know. You work for it. The shadow work, the great work, it's all worth all the pain, all the sweating, all the crying and the laughing, because it's all that together, you
Mhm.
know. And another aspect um, of shadow working is taking inside of yourself knowledge, because without this knowledge, without internet, let's say, okay, because internet has been a big like change in my life when I been able to get to the information, you know. um, it has been a very intimate and personal thing. I never really starting to talk about it like for years before going, because I wanted to bring understanding and wisdom about it, and not just like, because you're it's really a hardship, and being able to talk about it like that, and being able to talk about my traumas, because it's liberating you, by the way, when you're expressing it. That's why I told like, if you have really caring people around you, this will help you a lot.
Mm. Yeah, so let's say somebody doesn't have that support structure and doesn't
Yes.
have that social framework. Would you say that maybe starting to tell other people about their traumas could help, making other people aware of it, like sharing that with others essentially to get to
Well,
that point?
it's pretty much the same thing, actually.
Mm.
um I For me personally, I'm greeting people. Okay, I'm attracting these people. Okay, it's like it's I like that in my life. I'm attracting the people who have problematic, you know. And what it is, when you're alone, you're not alone. You're never alone, because we're all connected together. That's one of the deception people people need to get over,
Mm.
because there's plenty of people who are outside in the social medias. They're having a homepage, and you don't need money to do it. There's plenty of blogs and vlogs about it. Like, if you're alone, they when you're alone, you think you're alone, you're not alone, because there's a lot of people who can you can partake in their work too. So in shadow work, you're still alone. You know, it's not about the people you have around you or the quality of life. It's about you. It's a selfish um, fundamental need You know, it's very selfish because it's all, you do it all for you
Mm.
first. Everything comes, every of your actions and what you do is coming, it is because it bring you something back. Okay, so shadow work is very, like, it's very intimate. So you don't need you don't need a lot of people around you. You can find groups on the internet. You can, there's still, if you have friends, you know, you can talk to them. If you have like a relative and things like that. But mostly you go on the shadow work page there, and there's a lot of people who are uh, who wants to have people like just like me, you know,
Yeah.
and people can listen to you. You know, every tools are there. It's just do you have the will to go through it? You know, do you have the care to do it?
Mhm. So, this is a process, right? That is a work, and
Yes,
and it gives you worth out of the work, like any profession.
yes,
But this is a real work to be done because it's on yourself. I mean, what more important work is there to be done? It's fixing you, and then that ultimately, from fixing ourselves, contributes to fixing our world, doesn't it?
yes. It has. It's directly connected together.
Hmm.
I don't see a free world without people doing it. I don't see it because when I was talking about 6 to 7 years old, it's scary. It's very terrifying when you realize the the power of words, the power of propaganda, and the power of repetition, because this is all about that. And when you convince people, oh, truth is too hard, life is just let it go, live your life, go to party every day, and things like that, and they will not push you. The society, the institution, the education institution will never bring you back inside in your temple. Never. This is absolutely the contrary. That's what they want to do with people. The really collectivist mindset, and it's very dangerous when you have a lot of people who don't do the great work, who don't do the shadow work. It's very dangerous because it can be turned as a weapon. There's no bad or good knowledge. It's what you do, what would you do with it.
Hmm.
It's the desire behind.
Yeah, there's a difference between knowledge and belief, right?
Yes, exactly. And this is what I'm telling to people.
Mm,
I don't believe anything. I know things, and when I don't know, I'm studying.
right.
I'm getting in the work, because
You're building a connection.
outside of my family life, it's like it's taking most of the time of my, like, you probably know, children are very demanding, very dependent, and it's a beautiful responsibility. I respect them. This is and this is another point. If you don't respect yourself, if you don't love yourself, how can you love or respect someone else? That's a big point there. Okay, and my children and my wife make me discover that you essentially rediscover your children inside you. I got back to all these steps, when they're crawling, and then on the front paw, and therefore, and when they start to talk and ask you questions and things like that. And I decided to imprint myself with it, and do the same as they do. And it's
Mm.
very empowering, really, because you don't you're not, the conditioning is gone. Okay, it's everything is objective, principally, you know
So, you mentioned hypnosis as a
yes,
use. You mentioned mushrooms,
yes,
and then here did you just mention sort of questions and using questions as sort of a guide, other than
yes.
having support through other people? Is there any other techniques you would say are really essential for people to know?
not that I know personally, okay,
Mhm.
because these ones there, if you care to do your work, this is what you're gonna do, because essentially you're not that's an obligation to do the mushrooms and psilocybin. Okay,
Mhm. They're
it's a more,
options.
yeah, this is an option that I call them the shortcut for a reason, because this shit will it will knock hard, you and I don't think there's a way to do the shadow work, because it's all a really personal and intimate relation and a path that you have to take, and you're on your own. Okay, maybe you're gonna have to go see friends and entertaining and things like that, because you need some to take a break from time to time and heal from this, because it's like you're taking your wounds and you're reopening it, you know and so you have to heal again.
Yeah.
It, there's a I think there's a growing amount of people, especially in the entheogenic community. They because I don't always see it as a shortcut. I see it as a fast track
Yes.
to seeing, what where your shadow is. And there's a lot of people who forget that it's shadow work for a reason. It's not
Yes.
shadow play. It's not a little bit of shadow and you go tell your friends and then you see a little bit. But
Yes.
there's an amount of work that you have to be doing. And something like entheogens, if you're not doing the work, the mushrooms know, or these entheogens, there's an intelligence that knows if you're doing the work.
Yes.
And if you keep dabbling in those and you're not doing the work, it's going to chew you up and spit you back out.
Yep.
And there's I was just listening to Manly Hall earlier, and he was talking about vigil and vigilance, and being able to be quiet and let the divine within speak. And he said that there's an amount of worthiness that you have to have. If you're not, it's like there's a lot of people in the community that think that, oh, you're just, and I guess it is kind of there's polarity, or there's opposites to it, because there, especially in the Christian tradition, we're taught that everyone is worthy. But there's an aspect that the divine will not speak to you if you're not worthy to be spoken to. And he said something as far as, there's worldliness and there's worthiness. And worthiness requires you to put in that work. It's a lifelong obligation to quiet yourself and limit the a lot of people, like you said, they have the intelligence of, or the IQ of a 7 or 8 year old. And this what I see it as, their emotions aren't disciplined. There's no work into taming these attitudes and thoughts and emotions. So they don't have the quietude of the mind, or they're the vigilance of being a silent observer, without attributing all these attitudes or thoughts to that. Do you have any? Have you done any practices with quieting these mental or emotional attitudes? Uh,
Sure. Well, I began my path into meditation and contemplation. Well, real contemplation, because most children are contemplating, and people tell them they're sick. Okay, that they need to take pills because of
right.
that. So contemplation for me has been a big thing. And I I use nature as a basic fundamental principle. So when I want to have the calm, and I want to have, um, I don't know how to describe. I don't know if you guys have this relation with nature. Because
I do.
it's it's really, there's a lot of healing when you're going there. Your stress is getting out, you know, and then this is a very beautiful and poetic um, symbiosis between you and nature. And I think um, I think this is one of the most important thing. And yes, silence, it's dealt in the meditation. Has been dealt with the meditation for me. Okay, so you have this is what you're calling psychic noises. Okay, there are images and sounds and lights and things like that that are coming back. And when you're in the process of shadow working, your there's a part of you called the a super ego who will it will bash you. It will tell you things that you don't want to hear. It's going to insult you. It's going to attack you because this is the part of yourself. It's your mask, basically. It's your societal mask. And when the people they're talking about controlling the ego, it's not the ego that we have basically when you born with it and you discover it when you grow up. It's the instinctual relation you have. But superego is your conditioning and your programming for from your parents, for your relatives, when you the educational institutions and things like that. So this thing there, if it's not tamed, it will tame you. You know, you're gonna get back to your old habits. You're gonna act like infantilizing. You're gonna be an infant. You're gonna be afraid of everything. You know, and it's that's why we have authoritarianism, because people when they are 6 or 7 years old, they all they want is validation from their masters or parents or caretakers. Okay, so people want to have validation from the outside. Shadow work is having validation from the inside,
Mm.
basically. You and sometimes you're getting, and there's not only negative aspect to it, because I want to. Can I talk about this a little bit?
Yes,
The good sides of it.
absolutely.
Okay, so shadow work, even if it's hard, even if it's hardship, there's a lot of beautiful thing that spawns from it. Okay, I have complete control over my emotions. I can switch off and on my emotion when I need to, and that's there. It's priceless. When you're in situation that you need to be impartial, you know, you need to be calm, and you have to act like a really a real responsible adult. You cannot you cannot have you cannot take decision based on emotions. So that's one thing there. This is really important to have control.
Mm.
So the one thing that helps you when you're getting to it, it took me years to achieve that. It's stoicism.
Yes, big.
So you basically um, live under principles. It is a rigid system, very rigid, but it's very efficient. You don't have to take everything that come with it, you know, because there's an history of stoicism and the philosophy of it. Me, it has come naturally.
Hmm.
So this is one of the aspect there, and then self-loaning is gone. This is where you're starting to this is where you're starting to say no when you have to, basically.
Yeah.
So this there just that to achieve that, it takes me a decade to achieve it. I'm just starting to control. And one aspect that I want to bring, that it's so important, it's intuition. When you have the balance, the equilibrium between the two aspect, the two part of your brains, you have the middle pillar, like Brendan Martin said to yesterday in this and James podcast. And this is a good point there, and because you have the path of severity, and you have the other, there's the one in the middle. So shadow work brings you there. It's up to you if you continue or if you stop. But most people who doing the shadow work are going all the way. It takes eons to get through this mess that we're in, you know, because you realize that you are it. There's no separation. You are this. You are this. You are a reflection. As above, so below, so below. As above, so below. Yeah, the correspondence.
Mhm.
Whether you like it or not, you influenced by the society and the culture and everything, and it's taking back the power.
Right. Yeah, so you mentioned Stoicism. I
Yeah.
think that's a really, really good concept that I haven't talked much about, but is one that is very powerful for a lot of people, and it's on the uprise in nowadays
Yes.
as a philosophy. And a lot of people just first swept it under the rug, but it came back pretty naturally with all the great writers and all the great
Yes.
authors, and at the time that were promoting this so-called philosophy. But basically, it's exactly what you said, living in harmony with nature,
Yes.
understanding what nature is. And for me, I have that experience where I have contemplation. I remember I was friends with this guy who was a psychologist teacher, and I was like best friends with him, and he studied my mind. And he's like, what you're doing is not meditation, it's contemplation. And because I told him I would sit there and I would listen to music, or I would just quiet my mind and I would think. And music to me was another way I that helped me collect my thoughts and
Yes.
rearrange them. And to me, that was like recreating my culture. Because if a culture is making you think a certain thing and trying to infiltrate your mind, well, if you
Yes.
find music that is different from the mainstream, that you perhaps really like, that is creative and spiritual, that might create a whole new impact on the way you think. At least that's what did in my view. I think really helped me on my way is discovering all the many artists that barely anybody knows just from my research on music. And so not only that, but silence. Like when I'm in nature, I don't need music. Like why do I need music in nature? Um, and that's when I don't use music. I just listen to, the trees or whatever. And people think, oh, it doesn't do anything for you. Oh, nature is overrated. I heard this from some people who I've talked to because, my message is nature is the answer. And I'm like, you're really going to tell me that? It tells me about an individual, because most people have a deep connection. It's like peace, serenity immediately, vacation. And it's no surprise to me. So I thank you for sharing that because I have an experience with that too. I absolutely do. And different times of the day, even midnight, it's beautiful. It's beautiful at all times of the day,
Yes.
frankly. And it could also teach you a lot of lessons too. It's not like always beautiful, there's some chaos within the jungle, within the different areas. But we as humans, we've created houses and created the ability to live in harmony with nature if we so choose. And so
Yes.
that's what my whole second book is about. And I mentioned stoicism in there. But again, it's like I ran into it by surprise. So do you have any like book recommendations or any particular resources? I know you mentioned a podcast. Is there any other particular resources you would recommend for people?
Well, if you can get into Michael Tessarian uh, body of knowledge about psychology, about narcissism and psychopathy and psychopathology as such. Um, the way I see things is if you want to get out of mind control, you have to know about it. And I'm not talking about um, getting out of society. I'm not telling you to cut yourself from everybody, but it's a hermit. You have all these things around you, all these beautiful things, but essentially it's about your inner temple. You have this beautiful world inside of you, this infinite possibility of what you want to do. And music is one good one for if you want to express your emotions, if you want to create and put yourself in nature by words, by music. because they are extension of ourselves. So that's a good way to put it.
Mhm.
And I suggest people to get into the Kybalion. This is my basis there. The natural law. That's why I'm so. I'm not considering myself an hermeticist, but I'm deep into that. Because I acquire understanding of it, and I've been able to align myself with it.
Right. You don't have to
Because
consider yourself anything, I mean, you can
no,
study many different
I don't like
philosophies.
I don't like to be categorized.
Right.
I don't like clubs at all. I want to stay out, and this is what the Libercast exists, because
Yeah.
I there's so much divide outside. There's so much divide inside that we need to reconciliate all of that
Right.
together.
Yeah. And, in particular, I use the word abolitionism. I know, we talked about this before. I don't like to label myself either. For the longest time, I've always had like on my bios, like no title. I would just write
Yes.
Corey Angela, no title. And it's because it's like I don't want to be part of this identity and make myself out to be this sort of egoic image.
Yeah.
The reason why abolitionism kind of fit with me was because of the action that I was partaking in and the fact that it was used in the past for the same action. And
Yes.
they all had different professions and they all had different things that they were doing and they all didn't categorize themselves under different ideologies. They were just partaking in a certain action. So to me, that is special on behalf of like trying to get some sort of unity, where it needs to be found for what we're trying to do. Because I think categorization helps for that purpose. It's like putting a music in a genre. It's like, oh, I really like this genre and now I could discover more music that way. But if you didn't put it in a genre, you wouldn't be able to discover more music. So, that's
Yes.
how I discovered more music. And I think it can be sometimes harmful. I don't know what you think about this, but if an individual has really sad thoughts and they play a sad song, it might just make it worse or it might make them feel better. But I'm not sure. It could make them succumb in their current state. What I've noticed from my experience, where they just now they douse themselves with tons of sad music and
Hmm.
it becomes part of their identity.
I I I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm a metal head. Okay, so happy music doesn't fit with me. Okay, I listen to like very heavy stuff. There's a lot of poems in music, and we have this band called here Gris, that is very doom-like black metal, depressive stuff. But it can when you do the shadow work, you have to deal with these things, and it's not that it's the only thing you don't you cannot let this thing, because emotions are like a flow. They're coming, you're feeling it, and then you're letting go.
Mm,
So I'm a metalhead. I'm listening to dark shit. I listen to nihilism. That all these stuff that people, it's useless. You're all idiots and things like that. You know what? But I don't care,
right.
because the music connects with me. I'm a big fan of classical style music, and metal. It's very good, very cathartic style of music. When you're going into a metal show, you're gonna feel all kinds of things there, because people are connecting together for this, and it's very
Right.
powerful. And music does that. It joins people together, and metal there, it's fantastic. I stumbled upon this band called Bloodywood. I don't know if you're aware of
No.
it. Bloodywood is a folk metal from India, and it's very empowering. The lyrics are empowering, and they're talking about real things: depression, bullying, and
Yeah. Wow.
yeah, and sexual aggression, all things that connect with reality. And they're spiritual. For me, it's spiritual. I listen to
Yeah.
this band, and I got these shivers. The my hair are like that high, and it's I'm connecting to music literally, and that's a very good point there. And yes, it can be a good
Yeah.
salvation for people who don't like. I don't know about you, but I'm not into salvationism. at all. I despise it. I'm a fighter. I'm not gonna submit to anything, you know. So if I don't
Mhm.
like it, I'm not living with it. I'm getting rid of, you know,
Mhm.
like people. Like
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
People, and you have these bad habits you have, because I have bad habits still. You get rid of it when it's destructive. You know, you get rid of it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, I'd say that's also like a lesson in nature. Like the things are gonna happen, and you have to be ready for it. You have to be
Yes.
prepared. You need to have the mindset, the courage, the strength, and that is sort of what I see in the mindset that you're sort of presenting to me. But yeah, and so kind of the point what I was kind of saying is like music can be used in good or bad, like a tool, like anything.
Yes.
But like in your case, I definitely would see it as good because you're finding out artists that some people may not know, that are independent, who that are
Yes.
speaking the truth. And I think that makes a big difference, does it not? Like
Yes.
there's music that is put in certain frequencies, like 440 hertz versus 432, and people are finding out there's connections in what the music is actually doing to people. And if that's the case, then well, not all music is so equal. We got to be very careful, I think, with sometimes what choices we make with music, not just with food, with people and other things.
Mostly because people are really have a very um, short vision and perception about music.
Yeah.
Like if when I'm listening to Satanist music. Okay, I like black metal, and there's a band called Gargaroth. These people are awesome. Okay, the music that they play, it sounds like classical. There's a beautiful poesy behind. It's beautiful. It's beautiful music, but I mean, depends on what ears to listen to it, because my wife cannot stand this shit.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, and I think it depends, right, like you said, on where an individual is within their
Yes.
life, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I think
Yep.
this says it really says a lot about shadow work because I see a lot in the new age community is that they put the shadow into a not obviously the shadow in it it leans towards a negative perception, but the shadow exists within every human for a reason, and it creates a polarity that's there for a reason.
Yep.
And something like acknowledging the the enjoyment out of something like doom metal or heavy. I'm my guilty pleasure is just like, I mean, obviously, I love metal. I grew up on, rock and roll and all that stuff, but gangster rap, like, I don't give a fuck. Gangster rap, like, that is just, I listened to it at a young age, and it's an amount of freedom. And when you let it be that, and you let yourself experience that, it's a part it's a part of you that sure, it might be lean towards the shadow, but there's a freedom in the shadow. It's like where free will runs amok, but it's still that free will. It's still like you're not a robot. You have both of these aspects of yourself, and I see a lot of people attributing the shadow to something scary and always dark, but the shadow is there for a reason, and I just see a
Yeah.
relationship between this. Like I don't know if you've ever listened to Mark's older stuff with his group In Satanity, and I was listening to it and I was like, this is sick. Like this is just the sickest shit. Like I loved it, and I listened to that. But I mean, I think there's a letting go when you let yourself listen to that, and then there's when you go deep into that, and then there's a polarity. It reveals something different about the other end of that. The beauty, and you're it allows you to see deeper into the beauty and the love of things. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if that makes sense for you. What do you think about that?
Um, the thing is, when you're talking you're into this kind of music, even rap and things like it can get very dark. There's a lot of dark stuff there. Um, I think it's transmutation thing. Okay, I made peace with this part of myself because I was a Satanist too. Okay, before, so I made peace with myself with this part. I didn't. I don't want to get rid of it. You know, I tamed it. I decided you don't have control over me. You're still useful. I'm gonna keep you because there's a good part that Mark Bassel brings. Having the psychopath there, you have to have it. Okay,
Yeah.
if not, you're not gonna survive in this world. Okay, you have to be able to switch, and that's what I was talking earlier. You know, when there's situation and there's context that needs to be brought. I'm not saying that metal will make you psychopath. It doesn't. It's not that in my case because I can always talk for myself. I can only just talking for myself. Uh, it's more of a frequency thing.
Yeah.
So I'm a highly intuitive person. Okay, I see through people. Okay, I'm like that because of shadow work. This is what it brought me.
Mm.
Intuition. So I can really be empathic with someone. I can put myself at his place and having a relation. I can see if this person one time and then never see him again, but I'm gonna grow up from it. And um, because once again, natural law, correspondence. You know, people
Mhm.
say, "Oh, negative people and toxic people." Sure, you have the choice to put them out of your life, but you have the choice to listen to them and observe them and then talk to them and then later you let them go. Because you you this is a frequency vibrational relation with people. You are expressing vibration and then there's an exchange from the people. But if you are able to put a barrier between the two, and that's what empathic um, conversation and communication is all about. It's I'm able to understand you, but I'm not letting you inside. That's one of the big thing there. And we have this expression. We have a great example of that is if you go on Facebook. Facebook is the dumpster fire of all social medias. Really,
Yeah.
people, there's no barrier there. They're behind their screens, behind their cell phone, and they're telling garbage to other people. They're insulting them, and this is projection. Projection is everything. When you have a relation with someone and this people treat you like shit because they are treating themselves like that, you know. And it's not true that if I'm angry against you, if I'm frustrated against you, is because I have a problem. It's garbage. It's garbage. This
Yeah.
is a new age deception
Mm.
that you're gonna get pounded. And can I add something? I made a video about that on the Libercast Facebook page. Um, I stumbled upon these shadow workers. Okay, this guy is pretending that he's doing shadow work. Okay, I went to the Zoom meeting, and then the guy started to push collectivism. Oh, you want to do shadow work and then we're gonna all be together to do it. No, it doesn't work that way.
It has to be individualized, like an individual with an individual, if
it,
anything,
it
one on one.
must
Yeah.
it must it's not I'm not talking about having support. That's what we were talking earlier.
Right.
When you need to approach someone and have a conversation, like deep conversation with them, I'm not talking about that. They were like pushing the pajama party of shadow working. Okay,
Mm.
everyone coming with their baggage and then talking their like emptying their bags, and you're gonna hear a lot of like.
Yeah. No
And
confrontation
I
though.
I I'm the confronting guy. I'm the party pooper. Okay, I'm I'm gonna go somewhere and on groups and post and things like that, and I'm gonna take a shit. If it doesn't make any sense, I'm gonna take a shit on it. And
Right.
people just need to do that.
I agree.
Okay, when people are saying nonsense, you have to say them that it's nonsense, even if they, oh no, you don't understand me, or I'm gonna block you or something like that. Just this guy who was doing his meeting, what I tell them, you're a fraud, man, you're a liar. I told them, because this is what we have to do. If when you're in the great work and you know objective morality, you're gonna you're gonna detect it very fast. Moral relativism is everywhere because
Yeah.
people have this same mentality for themselves. You know.
So, you mentioned like people kind of spilling their baggage, just, throwing it out there. I think that's on social media too. People write up all these long things and throw it out there, but
Yes.
they're not taking the time to sit there and confront themselves like a journal would. If you were
Validation.
to, because like I have a journal, right? And it doesn't go to anybody but myself. So what's the point of me writing it? For myself. I don't put it out for ego, for identity, for image, for validation, for attention. No. If I want somebody to know about something, I'll tell them in person, maybe, if I can, or I'll
Yes.
get a one-on-one conversation. But like you're saying, if you're getting a group of people together, what's going to come of that other than dependence of that group? Of just, oh, I'm ready to spill the beans like I do on social media, like I do on the phone, like I do, but you're not confronting your internal fears.
Yes. It's gonna be a social jerking circle. This is
Yeah,
what's gonna be. And
good point.
I usually, when I'm talking about a social shadow work, I bring it from a very personal way. I say I, not you. And this is how people. It's the most easy way to get people to learn to listen to you. It's you talking. I did that. It has these consequences in my life. There's the good stuff. There's the bad stuff. But you're bringing them the experience. If you're coming with a book and you tell them that's the fucking truth, they're not there. They will not listen to you.
Mm.
It's like it's a very um, childish behavior. When you have to deal with children, you act like you're talking to children. You have to be straight to the point, no babbling. I get very bored when I'm listening to people talking, because I'm not about all this cultural stuff. I reside in Quebec. Okay, so it's French mostly, but I'm not into the culture at all. I in the shadow work, this is where it got me to. I'm still living in it because I have a little job that I'm working, and I have my social life there. I have my friends and my family, but I'm a very introvert person. I can be with people and still be alone.
Mm. So, this is a great conversation. I appreciate having you. If you don't mind, I'll ask one last question. So, and of course, you can take this any direction you want. You can connect it to shadow work. This is a question I like to ask a lot of people, and connecting it to what you just said about yourself and mentioning your own personal experience, which I agree, like, will help people connect with you. And like, it's even proven in different studies that if you have your name on different channels online, people are more attracted to it because it's an individual rather than some brand or some channel or whatever. So having that personal relationship, I agree, is really important. So you and I and other people have come across this thing called statism, and this is the belief in authority, belief that in collectivism, essentially, that we need somebody else to help fix our traumas, essentially, that we have to be dependent on them for fixing our traumas or our rights, our ownership. And so how long were you a statist, and how did you get out of that? Was it through Michael Tessarian, through the things that you mentioned?
Yes. Actually, I never voted. I'm an abolitionist since my teenage years. I've been always considering myself an anarchist,
Great.
um,
Yeah.
because I've seen very soon in my life the illegitimacy and the violence and the coercion behind. I didn't understand the way do now, for sure, but I was still seeing the crimes and the evil behind it. Um, Statism, as such, has many faces. Okay, so um, shadow work counters that. Eventually, you're gonna get out of the patterns. You're gonna get out. You're gonna take a step back from the culture, because essentially it's the temple that is important. It's your own temple. You're gonna get distracted. You're gonna make decision that are gonna change your life, as like children. It may be it's gonna be maybe slow you down a little bit, but it's not running. We're not running. It's healing, and we have to be strong enough to stand with a statist, stand with a religionist, and having a conversation, human to human. And you have to have this conversation with yourself. Are you able to look at yourself in the mirror and having a conversation and tell yourself that you love yourself? Not a narcissist way of telling it. Put your hand in your heart, in over your heart, and tell yourself that you love yourself. I'm telling you, it's incredible, very empowering. And this compassion, we need to have it with people around us. Whatever the belief they have, whatever we still, sure, there's a lot of evil people that you don't want to have, for sure. You keep the toxic people out of your life. But like I was saying, it's a symbiosis. You know, it's the apophatic approach to life. You know, you listen to people; they will tell you things their experience that are bad, that have made bad decision, and then you're not doing it. You don't have to take all the bad stuff. You don't have to take the anger when people are talking to you and they're angry, not necessarily onto you, but they're angry or frustrated or sad. You know, it is a beautiful, beautiful relation we have to have with ourselves for having to have a beautiful, um, beautiful relation with the outer world, because it's still there. You're gonna have to confront it again and again and again, and life will test you.
Mm.
If you don't do the great work, the great work will slap you around. You know, it's natural law, the consequentialism, cause and effect. You don't do nothing, you're gonna get shit from it. You know, just like that.
So would you say like we're naturally free and it's just a matter of that embrace, and the more we keep ourselves away from that freedom, the more it just slaps us in the face
Yes,
until we
if
realize
you
it.
go if you go against yourself, prepare to have a hard ride.
Mm.
I'm telling you, because it's not government, daddy or mommy government that will bring you to this. They will probably cause you to have a spiritual awakening, you know, in starting the spiritual path, but they're not the solution. You know, the solution are inside. If you have problems, if you have uh, great grief or sadness or depression, you have to make peace with yourself, because you're not gonna get over it. It's not taking pills that would get you over it, for sure,
Right.
for sure. You have to have the will and the care to get through it. You know, and have bruise and bleeding a little bit. I'm speaking metaphorically here, but you're gonna get bruised a lot. You know.
Hmm. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing all this knowledge. It's been very great. We haven't had anybody go deep into this part of shadow work, which is so
Yes.
essential, of just evaluating yourself. So thank you for sharing that. I like talking about music and nature. These things fit my alley. I think it fits a lot of people's alleys on purpose because it's reflective. It's interesting
Yes.
how Aaron listens to rap, you listen to metal, and I listen to, like, Aaron would look at my music and he'd be like, this is like too peaceful. This is too like soft. But like I listen to all sorts of different things, and I think it does depend on the mood, and I do think it depends on the reflective nature of things. Because sometimes I listen to trip hop, and I didn't realize how dark it is. It really, in its old roots of '90s, it's like really dark music, but I liked it. Like the old fashioned rock of the '90s was also really dark. So in the '80s were upbeat. The 2000s were like kind of fun, but like you had different environments, and some of that comes back with individuals. So I appreciate you for sharing all of that. I think people can kind of relate to a lot of that, and I hope they look into your work. You have a channel called the Libercast, right?
Yes.
The Libercast. They can just look up the Libercast on.
Yes, it's on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble. As you see, I, I I decided to put them there for backup. Um, yes, there's a lot of subject that are covered there. Not only shadow work, but mostly it's about mind control and healing and exposing the truth mostly.
Great. Yeah. I recommend everybody check that out. That's Libercast, and your name is Fred Gingras, right?
C'est Gingras.
Oh gosh, I'm not gonna be able to say that.
Yes, French name. It's a French name. It's okay, man. No
Yeah,
problem.
but if anybody wants to check out any more speakers, such as yourself, and thank you very much for coming on, go to nita.one/summit, nita.one/summit. This is the end of Slavery Summit. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, everybody.